Greg, if you don't mind coming up and talking, we're quite honored to have you here. I can't believe we've actually found both co-founders of this club after all these years. So it's amazing to have you here, and thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
To the club that you started. This is what we are 40 years later. Good and bad.
It does my heart good. I want to thank the officers for having me, and thank Peter for hooking up with me. You know, it was funny. I'd come across your Facebook page, and I'd written something on the Facebook page talking about one of the original plaques we had, and it just coincidentally, Peter hooks up with me. I hadn't seen Peter probably since the early '80s, and of course when I met Peter here, we got together about a week or so ago. The first thing I noticed that he still has that gorgeous head of hair, and me not so much. You know, so the years have been kind to Peter, maybe not as kind to me in the hair department. I also, before I came here, some of you may or may not know, I was a Denville police officer for 30 years, and because of that, I had to confer with my attorney prior to coming here. I had to be certain that all the laws, the applicable laws, statutes of limitations have now expired, and I am free to talk to you about some of the things that were instrumental in bringing this club together as a group. So what you see today. I also looked very, very hard for two people who were old original members who I thought might be able to confirm or perhaps deny whatever Peter and I had to say. I could not locate them. I reached out to one of my sources and found that both are in federal witness protection. So they're not going to be here either. However, we did have a good group of people back in the day. Quickly, I won't keep you that long. We got started back in 1970. It was 1970, November. I was a policeman in Denville, and we had Gearhart Chevrolet. And I remember they had a new Corvette brought into the showroom floor. It was an Ontario orange convertible. And it sat there on the floor in November of '70. And I used to go on midnights, and I would ride around Gearhart's, of course, checking for burglars or whatever I might find, car thieves. And I would look at that beautiful Corvette sitting in the window. And I used to probably go into Gearhart's 50 times a night just to look at that car. It looked fast sitting there. Circumstances were such in my life that I was, you know, for me it was fortunate but unfortunate. I was able to come into some money. Back in those days as a policeman, I took a job in 1969 for $6,900 a year. So a Corvette was certainly not within my budget. However, I did have some money available to me, and I kept thinking about, gee, I would really like to have a Corvette. That'd be a great thing. And that car bugged me and bugged me and bugged me. So one day, I got off duty, and I came in and I spoke to the owner. This was, I think, in probably around February when I went in. The car had sat there, and I said, I don't understand. This is a beautiful car. And I didn't know anything about engines. I don't know much about mechanics. I knew the hood was really cool. It had black LT1 on it, a raised hood. It was like a nice looking car. Ontario orange was kind of neat. I'd never seen a car that color before. So I said, how come this car sat here? And he says, Greg, he says, you know, a lot of young kids want to buy this car, but you know, they can't afford the insurance on it. It's like, it's kind of crazy. It's a high performance car. And I didn't know the difference between an LT1 and a 350 or a 454. I really didn't know much about cars. I said, okay, well, so talk to me. So I said, I would like to have it. Well, sit in the car, right? Now, Peter tried to suck me into sitting in his car. That's not happening, because all you have to do is put your butt in the back of the seat, and that was it. I sat in the car. The guy made me a deal. I took that first Corvette, my 1971 LT1, out of the showroom at Gearhart Chevrolet for $5,545. I was out the door with two tops. So that's how I got the car. Fast forward a little bit, and I'll check my notes from time to time. The only changes I ever made to my car, by the way, was I put an Edelbrock manifold on it. I put thrust side pipes on it eventually. I got it registered, and we had vanity plates available. So I thought I wanted, you know, Vet. Of course, couldn't get Vet. That was taken. So I'm thinking of all these crazy names. So I come up with one I put in. It had to be no more than 6 letters, and there could be a space. So I came up with Pet Vet. So it was P-E-T-V-E-T. I put it on my car. Well, I tell you, it's a little embarrassing, because every time I go out, you know, people are starting to say, oh, you're a veterinarian. I said, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I passed on that deal 6, 7 times. Finally, I'm going, you're a doctor. You know, I don't like to talk about it, you know. Oh, Dr. Hopf, come on in. You know, we've got a table for you. After that, I became Dr. Hopf, and I wasn't telling anybody I was a cop. You know, I never said I was a doctor, but they assumed I was. So that Pet Vet came in real handy. So anyway, I was driving by one day. Peter Carey actually leaped out. He had a house. I live in Cedar Lake. He actually leaped out in the road. He had a driveway right next to the road. Like leaps out, like gives me one of these stop things, stops me, and he didn't know it was me in the car. I said, Peter, I hadn't seen him in a long time. We didn't live that far apart, and you know, we've gone to school together, but I hadn't seen Peter. And he says, wow, when did you get a Corvette? And I said, well, I told him when I got it. And he started looking at it more and admiring the car, and we started talking about it. And we kind of hit up our friendship again. And I would stop by, once in a while. And this one day, I stopped down, and Peter was there. He had a little baby at the time, Paige, and his wife, Daff. And I said, Pete, why don't you take the car out for a ride? I said, you've been admiring it. Why don't you just suit their life? So he says, you'd let me? I said, of course I would. It's a car, Pete. Come on, So I give him the keys, and he and Daff, I just took off, and I babysat, and I had, children in my life, so that wasn't going to be a big deal. Well, it was kind of tough, but I never told him about what happened when he was gone. Well, I believe that where it was. But anyway, he was gone for about an hour, and he came back, and man, his eyes were really big, and he says, I'll never forget, the first thing he said when he was getting out of the car to hand me the keys, he says, I got to get one of these. Those were his words. And he actually conned his wife into buying his car, and it was probably about, back in the day, they were expensive. I think, Peter, we talked, you paid us a little bit less than
I thought I had a good deal until I heard your price.
Yeah, well, they couldn't get rid of my car, so I got a really good deal. So anyway, Peter ordered his car. It was a couple of months before he got it. I remember how anxious he was getting. He was going to go someplace else, but he ordered it. And then I got a call one day to pick him up. We were going to go get his car. And yours was a green, I forget what the color was called.
Attached green.
Yeah, it was a real pretty car. It was a coupe, but I was delighted because it wasn't an LT1. So I had something better than he had. I figured we got in a little race, not that we raced back in those days, but if we ever got in a little race, I might have beat him, And oddly enough, my 454, again, this is one of the things that I had to find out again tonight. I had run that car a couple of times against some other cars. I actually beat a lot of 454s, but they had different rear ends. My car had a 411 rear, and it wasn't really good on the high end, but boy, it got from there to there real quick, that quarter mile kind of thing. So I would beat a lot of cars, from the quarter mile with that car. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot. But anyway, Peter got in there. We got a car, and after he did his demo ride, we're sitting in the house one night. I like to go to Peter's house. He had better beer than I had, so we'd sit there and drink his beer. And he said, why don't we look into a club? We can get into a club or something. I see a lot of clubs out there, a lot of Corvettes out there. And we started doing a little research, and we found, I think there were 2 or 3, weren't there, Pete?
Yeah.
As I recall. And the one that I really remember was called the Lakeland Club. They met at the Makear's Tavern, Route 10. And we actually went up to that club to see what it was like. And it was what we call the boys' club. It was all guys and no gals there. And I was in a relationship, I was engaged, Peter was married. And we just didn't think that was our cup of tea. We wanted the gals to be involved, so we thought that really wasn't what we wanted. So with no other real options to speak of, we sat and talked a little bit, and Peter says, what do you think? Maybe we could form a club. I said, sure, okay, cool, we'll just start a club. And so Peter promptly nominated me as the procurement officer for new members. So which is really good, because I'll tell you what, being a cop does have certain advantages. So I went out, and what I would do, and this is in the disclaimer, what I would do is I would see a nice Corvette cruising through town, and I would turn on the overheads and I'd pull him over. The first guy I jumped was a guy named Tommy Vigilante, and his family, they're from Mars Plains, I guess, and his family's in law enforcement, son of the family. And I poor Tommy, I gave him a hard time about stopping him. He says, did I do something wrong? I said, no, today we're stopping people for doing something right. You made a beautiful stop at that stop sign. Can I see your license and registration, please? So he looks at me like, what? He gives me his paperwork, saw he's local, and I said, look, I'm not really going to give you a ticket. I just wanted to tell you I admired your car. I think the 69 Gold Coupe, was it, Peter?
Yes.
Okay, between the two of us, we got a complete mind. It's really good. But so I said, I'm not going to give you a ticket, but a friend of mine and I are starting a club, and I just wondered, you're local here, maybe you might be interested in. Yeah, I'll join. He goes, hey, well, only my question. Yeah, I go, whoa, this could work really good. So Tom and his wife Betsy, they became our 3rd member. So now we were a group. So it was really starting to grow. I started soliciting members. I'll tell you, being a cop was really cool. I used to have fun with these people. I wasn't going to give anybody a Corvette a ticket. I really wasn't. But sometimes I'd screw around with them. And like I stopped this one poor guy one day, and he had an older car. It was a 64, 65 coupe. And so I walked up to the car, and he says, I know, I was speeding. I said, well, sir, you were exceeding the speed limit a little bit. He says, I know, you're going to give me a ticket, because you have a quota, and I'm the guy that's going to fill your quota. I said, well, not really. Don't lie to me. I know you have a quota. I said, sir, I can't get a word into this guy. I said, sir, no, I know you have quotas. I know guys in the police department. You have to write so many tickets. Now I'm getting frustrated. I said, sir, we do not have a quota. I assure you. We used to have a quota. Now we can write all we want. I'll be with you in a minute. The guy looked at me like, I just kind of chuckled. I walked out. I said, sir, I just want to tell you something. I'm just looking for members for a Corvette club. Okay. The guy was really nice. You know, I'm not sure if he joined or not.
I don't know.
Was that Lewis?
But I stopped a lot of people, and before you know, we had, I don't know, 7 or 8, 9 people. And I did go out on a limb and stop a lot of cars. And I actually did give some guys breaks who were astounded, but I figured, nobody's going to know. Yet like 70 and 35 is a little on the high side, but I try to be good. But I told people, Corvettes look to go fast. You know, guys know, especially the new cars. You know, I was coming out of Cedar Lake where I lived, it's a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. I had an LT1. The only thing I changed was I put these thrush side pipes on, so it had a really good sound. Of course, they sit low. They look fast going still. And standing still. I had this lady jump out, flagging me down, screaming, cursing at me. You crazy, you're going through here 100 miles an hour? And now I'm a cop, I was in uniform, screaming. And I won't mention Mrs. Patterson's name. So anyway, I said, I'm not speeding, don't tell me I can see you go. I said, I'm doing 24 miles an hour, the car just looks fast. I wasn't lying to her, it just looked fast. But it was a lot of fun driving those cars, for sure. And before long, we had, I guess it was, maybe a while before he really got into, what's his name, Bob Moyer, when he came on board. So Bob Moyer came on board, and he worked, what are you, a bank?
He was a banker, and he was older than me.
Yeah, and he had some connections. So he says, you know what, before we get too out of, and we were starting to take rides and things and go on rides. In fact, the rides are cool. Sometimes I would be the head and Peter would be the butt. And then other times, you know, Peter would be the head and I would be the butt, and sometimes we'd just butt heads, but it was work. It was cool. We had a lot of fun. And we'd get, 20, 30 cars drive down the shore. I mean, we went all every place. I'm sure you guys do that now too, you know. A little tough on the traffic lights. We might have run a couple of lights now and again. That was a problem. And we had no radios. Peter kept wanting me to cop radios in the police department. I said, you can't take the police radios out for a Corvette run. Are you kidding me? So I wouldn't do that. But anyway, Bob Moyer, he said he had some connections, and he was the one who started to get the association papers together to become a real organization. And you have those papers, don't you, the original papers?
Yeah.
I don't know if Peter and I may be on those papers as officers back in the day. I'm not sure.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, we could well be, you know, because I know we were both officers, we both held various positions in the club. But it was starting to grow, it was really cool. Just real quick, and I'm almost done with you folks. From its inception, I had my first vet was in 1971, I said the LT1. My fiance and then became my wife. I bought her a 1970 hardtop convertible, both tops. It was a 454. I bought that from another police officer. So that was my second Corvette, and that was kind of cool. Later on, some years later, I bought a 1973 coupe, and the one with the rubber bumpers on it. It was kind of a neat-looking car. I worked on that. I had that for a few years. I forget even what I sold that one for. Not too much money, I'm sure. I paid about $3 for that car. I sold it about the same. The car I'm really sorry that I ever had and let go. I bought a 1965 convertible. I'm sorry, coupe, and it was a really nice car. It was a matching numbers car. It was really, really nice. I bought the car for $4,500, and I had it for a couple of years, put some work into it, just really got it detailed up nice. And, you know, as things would happen, I needed to get out of the vets at that time. I needed money. And a guy came and laid down $6,500 on my coffee table and drove the car out the door. You know, he just drove it away. No plates, just he says, I'm dry. I said, I'm going for a walk down the lake. What happens to the car after I got the cash? I don't care. And it was gone. And boy, I tell you what, I look back on that car and I say to myself, you know, what an investment. If I only knew what that car would be worth today, talk about investment hindsight, it just kills me. Does anybody here have a 65 coupe, by the way? No?
66 convertible.
Yeah, well, see, Peter had a 63 split window, and another one of my buddies had one too. That was a dream I couldn't even possibly afford, you know. But and the funny postscript about that car, my 71 coupe or 71 convertible, about 10 years after it was 10 years, not about it was 10 years after I'd sold that car. I was in the Granian Shopping Center in Denville. Now it's changed, whatever it is, but in that shopping center, and I see this beautiful LT1 convertible parked there, just like my car. It was really, really nice. So, you know, I got out and I was in a patrol car and I walked around and I just wanted to ask the guy about the car. It was a beautiful car. So 10 minutes later, I don't think it was maybe that long, but about 10 minutes later, this fellow walks out, and he goes, sir, I said, anything wrong? I said, no, not at all. I was just admiring your car. I had one just like it. He says, yeah, I know you did. He says, I said, what? He says, Greg? I said, yeah. He says, it's your car. I said, really? And I don't even remember the guy's name. He says, yeah, it's your car. I said, you're kidding me, right? And the guy was living in Rockaway at the time. And I said, man, it really looked good. The only thing they'd taken is, back in the day, we had the 8-track players, and to put it in, I had to put it on the console in reverse. So I had to feed it this way. He'd taken that out, and he'd replugged it or replaced the console, because I didn't see the holes in it. So that was, cleaned up. But the car was really nice. So he says, actually, I'm going to be selling the car. I said, really? I said, wow, this may be my lucky day. I said, he said, if you're interested, I'd be willing to, I'd make you an extra deal on it because it was your car. I'd give you a good price. I said, well, lay it on me. What do you got to get for it? He goes, for you, I'll let it go reluctantly. Give me $14,500, it's yours. I said, $14,500, that's 10 times more than you paid me for it. 10 years later, he goes, that's what Corvettes have done. I said, thanks, but I can't afford $14,500, so I couldn't buy my own car back. But that's, that's the investment in Corvettes and things, how they've gone. But in all the years, we had many, many good times. I think the important thing about this club, and I'm glad to see it's gone, it just boggles my mind that 40-some years later, almost 42 years later, you guys are all sitting here and the club's alive and well. That does a man's heart good. I was telling a fellow I was going to come here, and I told Peter about this. And this guy, as he used to say to me, he says, Greg, you're always talking about things years and years ago. And he says, you're so nostalgic. And I said, yeah, I like to talk about things like years ago. And he goes, Greg, remember this thought. Nostalgia, it's a thing of the past. Yeah, it ain't over till the game's over. What the heck, But it's true. But it does my heart good to see you here. I'm really pleased that you've taken the time to invite Peter here and myself to come back and talk to the club and maybe shed a little light on its original start. The name Natural Glass Corvette Association, and Peter thought we were a club. We actually were an association. We called ourselves an association fairly early on. We were sitting around one night, and Tommy Vigilante's wife, Betsy, I believe her name was, she may have, and I was watching Peter's presentation, she may have come up with the name. We were kicking around, we thought it was cool, New Jersey Natural Gas, New Jersey Natural Glass. We thought that was kind of a neat play on that word. So that's the name we came up with. Peter wasn't sure who came up with the credit for the Have Vet Will Travel, so I'm going to take credit even if I didn't, and the chess piece. And we had our first plaques made up, which back in the day, if you had a car or any kind of a hot rod club or something, you had plaques you hung on the back of your license plate or below your license plate, which looking at your cars today, that wouldn't happen anywhere. By the way, who's got a front license plate on their Corvette? Anybody? A couple of you, all right? Yeah, there's not a lot. I'm glad to see that. Well, years ago, people just didn't do it, and I would never give a guy a ticket for not having his front license plate. It wasn't a problem. What's what? 150? Well, there's some guys out there that are hard noses that don't understand that. Don't pay attention to them. Just pay attention. But anyway,
I'll send a ticket to you.
I don't know if I've helped just shed something on some light on what's happened with the club. It matriculated, so well, I guess Peter and I, we got out probably about the same time. Life changes, things go on. I think I got out late '73, maybe somewhere in that area, and I moved on. I mean, I've had cars over the years, but I moved on, and the club obviously kept going. I think Peter got out somewhere around there too, around '73. And we knew that the club had gone on. I actually went to a meeting, a couple of meetings actually over the years. One I went to about 10, 15 years ago maybe. I lose track of time. But I went, and I didn't go for any notoriety other than to see what was going on with it and just to say, hi, I'm Greg Hopf. You might have heard my name. I think I'm on your incorporation papers. I'm not sure. But no one seemed to care. So nostalgia wasn't important. I'm delighted that you folks have taken the time to kind of learn a little bit about the club and a little bit about the club's history. Peter, can I have you up here for a minute, please?
Maybe they have some questions for you.
Yeah, you have any questions that I can answer or shed any light on? Did I ever give any of you a summons? No.
Wheels in Motion, how did that come about? The car show?
Yeah.
We were out.
We were out. We were out.
We never hosted any
got
shows.
involved with that. No, we never
So you
got.
guys never produced a show then?
No, it was
No, we
just
produced
among
children, and that kept us busy, so we didn't do shows.
No, the first show was in '75.
Right, yeah, we never got into shows. I'm sorry, but yes.
That was done by Bob Smith, and his wife actually gave them, we had a contest for this show, what to call it. And Bob Smith was a member, and his wife came up with that. She won.
We kind of kept our focus on the original theme that we put together of having a family-oriented club. We were more delighted to get together for picnics, for just rides, and you know, there were more babies that rode in Corvettes, probably very unsafely back in the day, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But that was where we wanted to keep our focus. I think it's great to see the gals here. It's good because a lot of places didn't allow that. Not that that's bad, but we just felt that this is a family deal. That's the way we want it. And if you've kept it that way, it does my heart good. Yes, sir.
The way you recruited some cars, you would pull them over. Did you
Right.
ever go to pull somebody over and they just took off and you said, oh shit. So,
Yeah, yes, actually, one night on Route 80, I was parked, if you're familiar, as you come up the hill from Route 80, just before you hit Denville, you know, there's a cutaway there, this is a line between Mississippi and Route 80. So I was there, it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and I had my lights off, and this Corvette comes up, and he passed me doing 120, 125 miles an hour on radar. And, you know, I flicked the lights on and pulled out, and I figured, I'm never gonna catch this car, no way. So I went up there, and actually, I got up almost to Rockaway Township, the exit for Hibernia, and here's that Corvette sitting on the side of the road. He just pulled over, and I pulled over behind him, and I said, what, why'd you stop? He goes, Atlas. You know, he says, I knew you were gonna catch me sooner or later, he says. So I figured I was gonna pull over. I said, well, what the heck are you doing that kind of speed on the highway? He says, well, it's kind of a long story. I said, what do you mean it's kind of a long story? He says, well, he says, you know, he says, I was dating a woman, you know, and I loved her, and I ended up marrying her. And I found out recently that she was cheating on me. I said, yeah? He says, well, she was cheating on me with a Denville cop. I said, really? I said, cheating on a Denville cop? I said, he says, yeah. I said, so what does that do to your speed? And he says, I thought maybe it was you trying to give her back.
You asked for it, Chief.
I like to do stand-up comedy on the side. Any other questions I can answer for you? Seriously, it was a good thing to do. And people with Corvettes always are getting harassed. I mean, some cops are just idiots when it came to cars. I think half of it was a jealousy thing. They couldn't afford one, and they jacked people up all the time, you know? And I just didn't think that was right. So when I would stop them, they were certain they were getting a ticket. There was no doubt in their minds. So when I would tell them, look, no, you didn't come to a complete stop. I'd appreciate if you do that. And I usually would do it a little more subtly. And I'd turn around and go, by the way, I own a Corvette, and I'm in a Corvette club. You wouldn't be interested in getting in the club, would you? And that would kind of spark it. You know, yeah, I have a couple people say no because they live in California. It was going to be good. But for the vast majority of them, I think that we you know, anybody that I could get, and locally was an important thing. We weren't trying to, I understand you have people out of state now, don't you?
Yeah, we have some in Kentucky,
Wow.
Florida.
You know, if I'd have known that, I'd have been stopping them out of staters. Yes, please.
Do you own a vet today?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I don't own a vet. In fact, I sold my 71. I bought a 73 Caddy. So I was styling then. That was good, you know. But and then after when I met Peter here about a week or so ago, I rode up on a motorcycle, and he rode up the vet because I wanted him to get a motorcycle so he started riding again. He used to have bikes. And Peter was very gracious, and I looked at that car, and there's probably still some drool on it because it's a gorgeous automobile. And so he opened the door and he says, you got to sit there. I go, you're not getting me there, baby. I know what's going to happen. I did it to him. It's not happening. But he's trying to convince me to get a vet, and you know, you guys are all smiling at me, so you know I'll be thinking about it now. So, all right, enough said. You might see me here. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see about that.
Just keep having Greg keep his police hat on for a moment. And he did say there were disclaimers and everything. Denville Police Force, and Greg was probably only 24, 25 years of age. He had already been on the force for 2 or 3 years. They changed their high-speed chase requirements. After Greg totaled, if not 2, 3 police cruisers, they said, that's it. Greg never lost a speeder, but at what cost? Next time, Officer Hopf, you will radio Parsippany or Newark or Connecticut and tell them this car is on the way. You will not chase them. So from that point on, there were no more high-speed chases.
He's bringing out memories that I wanted to kind of forget, you know? Yeah, it's not my fault that these nitwits crash into me at 70 miles an hour. It's not. but I did get them.
He did.
And I never got charged for that either, it was great. Nowadays, if one of my officers had done that, I'd retired as a lieutenant. If I had a guy in high-speed chase, that wasn't gonna happen. He'd be losing his job. Stop, it's just too dangerous. So Corvette, you're all good, you're all good. I wouldn't chase you anyway, you know, we're fine. So, anyway, to wrap it up, and I just wanna say thank you. I was rummaging through some of my storage sheds. By the way, just because you folks are lucky, and I'm this kind of guy, I retired, but I'm not the kind of guy that can retire. I've had a video production company, I've done my own television show, on Sportsman's Channel, a hunting show, done all kinds of things, and I just have to do something. So I took a job, and I am the resident manager of A1 Self-Storage in Ledgewood, New Jersey, for all your storage needs, okay? So if you come up, we normally give a 10% discount with a coupon. I'm gonna throw another 5% on top of that, and I'll treat you really good if anybody needs storage. I do have several Corvettes there. I don't know if I have any of yours up there, but I do have several Corvettes. It's amazing, people who don't have garages, they're funny about their cars. You know, they'll pay $280 a month, whatever it costs to get in one of the garages. It's a great way to put cars. And I'm there, I'm the resident manager, so you're protected by me and my two little buddies, Mr. Smith and Mr. Wesson. So we look out for your property, so if you need any storage needs, come on up. But in any event, I was rummaging through one of my spaces, cleaning up a little bit, and lo and behold, I'm going through boxes of papers and junk, and I came across the old original plaques from the Natural Glass Corvette Association. And I pulled them out and cleaned them up, and with that being said, would you like to come up here for a moment, sir? Richie? I'm going to just take this out, and I'm going to have Peter read this. Peter and I discussed this, and we thought this might be something very, very nice. This is one of the original plaques. Every member had one of these for every vet they had, and this would hang on the back of your car. But I would like to, well, let Peter read it. I'd like to present this with Peter.
On the back, we came up with some presentation wording. The caption is original 1971 NGCA plaque. It's donated by Gregory Hopf, 1971 NGCA co-founder. Presented by NGCA co-founders Gregory and myself, and it's presented to Richie Caruso, 2012 NGCA president. Our words are, it is both a thrill.
Okay, he's getting on. I love you such a mush. I'm just a hard ass. It's both a thrill and an honor to be able to donate to the NGCA, what probably is the oldest piece of club memorabilia in existence. May the next 40 years be as successful as the first 40. Always remember, have vet, will travel, and it's signed by both me and Peter. And we have some
and I sacrifice you to give this up. So thank you so very much.
And we're going to do something else I'd like Peter to tell you about.
I am going to ask you for that back. In
Okay.
the short time since Greg and I have gotten together, there wasn't enough time to do this properly. So what is going to happen is the wording on the back will be put in brass in a proper plaque form, and then we want the club plaque and the presentation wording properly mounted and framed. It will go to you as current president. We hope it gets handed down from president to president. Maybe at club functions such as Wheels in Motion. It could be on an artist's easel. I'm sure the club has got a table set up, and we just hope that it
really nice.
goes on.
And we'll leave it up here so you can see it before we take it back.
Please.
That's just great.
Again, I want to thank you, folks. Thank you for your attention.
You guys are great, and I can't believe that we are able to have the two of you here, and I'm so glad that you guys were able to come, talk to us, give us a bit of history, and I'm sort of words, because it's really nice to have both of you guys
That's
here.
nice to hear, because Greg, the first thing he threw up when I said come to the meeting, he said, "Are they interested?" I said, "Yeah."
Yeah.
Well, he mentioned to you the one meeting he went to. It was around 10 or 12 years ago. I guess my daughter ran into the president of the club at the time, which was a woman. My daughter mentioned that, gee, you know, my dad and his friend founded the club, and she, oh, that's nice. Maybe they'd like to come to a meeting. But she was totally nonplussed by my daughter's introduction. So I guess consciously or subconsciously, I became jaded. Greg was, well, you know, why bother?
That's at least 15 years ago.
Oh, okay, all right. So, to have the reception from the officers, from the membership, it does us.
Again, I'm quite interested in maintaining the history of the club. I've only been a member maybe, I don't know, since '03, whatever it is, 9 years. But still, the guys out here have been a lot longer than that. And I would love to be able to put together as much history of the club as I can. And I'm not sure exactly how I would organize it, but I'm quite interested in it. I know a lot of other guys are too. I spoke to them over the weekend, so that's really cool that you guys are going to be here. And so it's a good thing.
Okay.
All right? Thank you guys very, very much.
Okay.
All right, we'll leave it over here.